Imagine walking into a public library where every single book is chained to the desk.
Right.
And to even open a cover, to just read a single page, you have to verify your identity with a federal regulator.
Yeah, that sounds like some kind of paranoid dystopian fiction.
It really does. But according to a new promotional banner aimed squarely at modern school administrators, turning an educational institution into a heavily fortified digital vault is actually the new gold standard.
Exactly.
So welcome to the deep dive. Usually, we sit down with a massive stack of research papers or sprawling investigative articles or dense historical texts to synthesize for you.
Right, we love our big stacks of reading.
Oh, absolutely. But today, we are taking a completely different approach. We are unpacking a single, densely packed promotional image.
And it is a brilliant exercise in visual decoding. I mean, a single piece of commercial media can inadvertently communicate pages and pages of cultural shifts.
Oh, for sure. Cultural, legal, institutional.
Yeah, purely through its design choices and the specific anxieties it tries to soothe for its target audience.
Right. So I want you to picture this image as if you are digging up an artifact 1,000 years from now. Think of it as a modern hieroglyph where every symbol, shape, and word has been aggressively optimized to send a very complex message to the leadership of educational institutions.
It's a very targeted message.
Very targeted. Let me set the scene for you. It's a wide banner. On the far left, we have a dark blue logo shaped like an octagon.
Kind of resembling a stop sign or a digital shield, right?
Exactly, a shield. Inside that octagon is a flaming torch, which is a classic symbol of enlightenment.
Sure.
But next to the torch is a book. And this book has a massive literal padlock bolted to its cover.
Which is such a striking choice.
It really is. And sitting immediately next to that jarring image is a completely different logo. It's a traditional, ornate, open book, topped with a classic academic graduation cap and tassel.
The visual tending there is just immediate, and it's highly intentional. Yeah, I mean, you have the ultimate symbol of open, freely accessible knowledge placed directly adjacent to the ultimate symbol of restricted, fortified access.
A locked vault right next to an open book.
Exactly.
Then, dominating the center of the image is a 3D-style gold-colored banner with bold Navy text reading, DGPSI Education.
Right, that's the core product being pushed.
And beneath that, acting as a structural foundation for the whole graphic, is a dark blue strip with crisp white text that says, for DPDPA compliance in an educational institution.
The fine print that explains everything.
Exactly. Finally, anchored on the far right, is the silhouette of a striding lion on a tan background with the words "Made in India" stamped across its body.
So there's a lot going on in one image.
A ton. So our mission today is to decode this collage. We are going to explore the fascinating collision this banner represents. It's traditional education slamming headfirst into modern regulatory compliance and national identity.
Yeah, this graphic is essentially a map of a massive paradigm shift. Well, we are looking at a visual admission that schools are being forced to completely redefine what their primary responsibilities actually are. I mean, the traditional symbol of education has, for centuries, been an open book.
Right. Transparency, accessibility, the free exchange of ideas.
Exactly. You walk in, you learn. But the modern reality introduced here with stark bluntness is the padlocked book.
And putting a padlock on a book feels almost, anti-educational.
Yeah.
You don't usually associate heavy security hardware with the act of a child learning to read.
No, you definitely don't.
It creates this fundamental friction. We want schools to be these open, collaborative, frictionless environments.
Yeah.
But this logo is essentially advertising a bank vault door for a kindergarten classroom. How does a school even begin to balance those two extremes?
Well, the designers of this banner are directly tapping into a genuine administrative nightmare. Schools are no longer just places of learning. They have morphed into massive, highly vulnerable custodians of sensitive data. Yeah, if you have a kid in the school system, or even if you just pay local taxes, you are funding a massive, invisible digital fortress.
I don't think most people realize that.
They don't, but think about it. A modern school network holds psychological evaluations, behavioral notes, granular financial data from parents.
Oh, like for paying for lunches and stuff.
Exactly. Biometric data for cafeteria payment systems, medical records, they are absolute treasure troves of personal information.
Which makes them incredibly lucrative targets. I mean, we've seen the headlines about ransomware attacks crippling entire school districts,
Monster.
where hackers threaten to release the, social security numbers and disciplinary records of thousands of minors unless a ransom is paid. The stakes are wildly high.
They are. So the visual of the padlocked book is acknowledging that the era of naive, frictionless education is pretty much over.
Right.
The message isn't that the curriculum itself is locked away from the student. It is communicating to the school administrator that the metadata of the educational process must be locked down.
The metadata.
Right. Security now precedes instruction. If your network isn't secure, you cannot legally or safely teach.
So the open book with the graduation cap sits there as a nostalgic reminder of the ultimate goal, which is educating the student.
Yeah.
While the padlocked book acts as the heavily armed bouncer at the door, making sure nobody steals the building's infrastructure while the kids are trying to read.
That is the exact dynamic. And it is vital to recognize that schools did not voluntarily adopt this hypersecure posture.
They didn't ask for this.
Not at all. They didn't wake up and decide to spend a massive portion of their budgets on cybersecurity fortresses instead of new textbooks. They are being forced into this reality by the very text that sits below those logos.
Right, the acronyms in the middle. So that padlocked book isn't just a metaphor for a general philosophy of safety. Philosophy doesn't force a school board to buy expensive software.
Exactly. The law does.
And that legal mandate is sitting right in the center of the banner. We have the text DGPSI Education resting on the foundational banner that reads, "For DPDPA compliance in an educational institution."
So we have to unpack those acronyms, starting with the DPDPA, which is India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act.
Okay.
This isn't a vague set of best practices. It is a rigorous, comprehensive legal framework governing exactly how personal data can be collected, processed, stored, and deleted.
Right.
It introduces crushing financial penalties for data breaches and enforces incredibly strict guidelines on user consent.
The word compliance carries so much weight here. I mean, they could have written keep your school safe or next generation data security.
It could have, yeah.
Instead, they chose heavy, bureaucratic, legalistic language to share space with a graduation cap. It shifts the tone from innovation to risk mitigation. They are essentially selling a shield against federal liability.
Because under the DPDPA, an organization that collects data is defined as a data fiduciary, and the person whose data is collected is the data principal.
Okay, so the school is the fiduciary.
Right, and the fiduciary is legally bound to protect that data. For a standard corporation, compliance is complex but manageable. You track your adult employees and your customers.
Sure. But the banner explicitly carves out the phrase, "in an educational institution."
Which changes everything. It actually makes me think of architectural building codes.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, because you wouldn't use the same blueprints, safety regulations, and emergency exits for a chemical manufacturing plant that you would use for a kindergarten.
Obviously not.
The physical architecture has to reflect the specific vulnerabilities of the people inside the building. So the digital architecture should follow the exact same logic. A school needs a bespoke digital framework.
And that building code analogy perfectly illustrates what the other acronym, DGPSI, actually represents.
Oh, really?
Yeah. DGPSI stands for the Data Governance and Protection Standard of India. So if the DPDPA is the federal law saying your building must be safe, the DGPSI is the architectural blueprint detailing exactly how to construct the walls.
Like where to put the cameras and how to test the locks. Exactly. It is an actionable framework for implementing data governance. And by advertising DGPSI Education, they are offering a specialized blueprint designed for the unique chaos of a school environment.
Chaos is the right word, because a school's digital architecture is vastly different from a corporate office.
Vastly.
In a standard business, your users are adults who sign employment contracts detailing data usage. In a school, your primary users are minors.
Right.
A 7-year-old using a school-issued tablet to play a math game cannot legally consent to a complex data privacy policy.
They can't. And the DPDPA explicitly requires verifiable parental consent for the processing of a minor's data.
Wow.
Think about the administrative load of that single requirement.
That's massive.
If a teacher wants to use a new interactive spelling app in the classroom, they can no longer just download it and let the kids log in.
They have to get permission.
The school administration must audit the app, verify it complies with the DPDPA, legally obtain and track the consent of every single parent in that classroom, and ensure the app provider deletes the data when the school year ends.
That is wild. And the user base is incredibly transient, too. I mean, every single May or June, 20% of the population graduating class leaves the network permanently.
Yeah, they're gone.
And then a brand new cohort of users enters in August. In a corporate setting, offboarding an employee is a controlled individual process. A school is mass onboarding and mass offboarding thousands of minors simultaneously,
All at once.
while being legally required to retain certain permanent academic records, but completely destroy other transient behavioral data.
Yes, you also have a staggering number of access points.
Oh, like who's logging in?
Exactly. A corporate network is generally accessed by employees and the IT department. A school's network is accessed by students, teachers, substitute teachers, parents checking grades on web portals, outside vendors managing the cafeteria balances, and state regulators pulling anonymized testing data.
That is so many entry points.
And every single one of those access points is a potential vulnerability and a distinct compliance nightmare.
So when this banner highlights a tailored DGPSI education approach,
Yeah.
they're basically looking the school administrator in the eye and saying, we understand that managing consent for 5,000 minors is a totally different ballgame than managing data for 500 adult employees.
Yes.
They're saying, we have the specific blueprint to secure your kindergarten.
It is selling peace of mind in a heavily regulated, high-risk landscape.
Which brings us to a fascinating pivot in the banner's visual narrative.
The final piece.
The final piece. So we've established that the school needs a lock, and we've established a specific legal blueprint that dictates how the lock must be built. But the banner argues that the function of the software isn't the only thing that matters. The final, massive element on the right side of the image insists that the geographic origin of the solution is just as crucial.
Yes, we are moving from the mechanics of compliance to the politics of data sovereignty.
Data sovereignty. Because we have this bright orange silhouette of a striding lion set against a tan background with Made in India stamped boldly across it.
It's very prominent.
We've gone from the academic symbols of torches and books through the sterile acronyms of the law and landed on a highly aggressive, deeply nationalistic visual.
Well, the Make in India lion is a highly recognizable campaign emblem. It's intended to encourage domestic manufacturing and investment.
Sure, which makes sense for physical goods.
Exactly. In the context of manufacturing a physical desk or school bus, it's a straightforward appeal to national pride and economic growth. But in the context of data protection and compliance frameworks, the inclusion of that lion fundamentally alters the message of the banner.
I want to push back on this a little bit, though, because it's easy to view this simply as a cynical marketing strategy.
Oh, I'm sure marketing plays a big role.
Right, but is slapping a nationalistic logo on a software banner just a smart way to win government education contracts by waving the flag? Or does the Made in India stamp essentially serve as a functional secondary lock on that book?
It certainly functions as effective marketing, no doubt about that. But in today's digital climate, it is absolutely a secondary lock.
A secondary lock, how?
We are witnessing a massive global trend toward data localization. Governments are realizing that the cloud isn't actually a magical, borderless entity floating in the sky.
Right, it's actual computers.
The cloud is a physical server rack sitting in a warehouse, and the physical location of that warehouse determines which country's laws apply to the data inside it.
Oh, wow. So if a school uses a compliance software developed and hosted by a foreign entity, let's say a company based in the United States, that Indian student data might be routed through servers in Seattle.
Precisely. And if that data sits in Seattle, it is potentially subject to U.S. legal jurisdiction.
That's a huge deal.
It is. If a foreign government agency issues a subpoena, or if there is a massive data breach on that foreign server, the Indian school district, and by extension, the Indian government has significantly less control and recourse.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
You really don't want the medical records, behavioral evaluations, and biometric data of your nation's children sitting on a server halfway across the world, subject to laws you literally cannot influence.
No, you don't.
So the lion isn't just saying, buy local to support the economy. It is actively communicating a jurisdictional shield.
And the anxiety around data sovereignty is profound right now.
I can imagine.
When a school administrator sees the Made in India lion in the context of DPDPA compliance, it alleviates the specific anxiety of foreign interference.
Right. It translates to, this is a local solution, built for local laws, keeping the deeply sensitive data of our local citizens safely within our local ecosystem.
It completely merges the concept of digital security with national sovereignty.
It is incredibly revealing to see that concept printed just inches away from a graduation cap. I mean, this banner takes the deeply intimate, localized human experience of a child learning to read in a classroom and wraps it in suffocating layers of national security, global data politics, and strict legal compliance.
And look closely at the imagery again. There is not a single photograph of a human being on this banner.
Oh, you're right.
There are no smiling students. There are no teachers pointing at a whiteboard. The human element is entirely absent.
That's eerie.
It is composed entirely of symbols of authority, restriction, legal frameworks, and national borders.
The sheer gravity of data compliance has pulled the administrative focus completely away from the human act of learning and redirected it toward the structural mechanics of risk management.
It is a profound statement about where the energy of modern education is currently being spent.
If we look back at the visual journey we've taken through this single artifact, we started on the left with the conflicting symbols of the Torch of Enlightenment placed right next to a heavy padlock.
The tension of trying to operate an open library while being legally mandated to bolt the books to the floor.
Exactly. And then we moved through the center, unpacking the unforgiving demands of the DPDPA and the bespoke blueprints of DGPSI Education.
Where we explored the reality that schools are now legally treated as high-risk data processing centers,
Right.
forced to manage the complex consent of thousands of transient minors.
And finally, we ended on the far right with the striding lion. The promise of data localization and digital sovereignty, ensuring that the complex machinery protecting the students is built, maintained, and legally guarded on home soil.
It is a remarkable encapsulation of the dual burden placed on modern schools. They are mandated to be both educators of the next generation and impenetrable, legally compliant data fortresses.
It really makes you look at the infrastructure of your local school in a completely different light.
It does.
The Wi-Fi network they use in the classroom is just as heavily regulated and fortified as the locks on the physical doors. Well, we've decoded the visual evidence, but it leaves a lingering question. A thought I want you to mull over as you consider the schools in your own community.
Yeah.
If a modern educational banner requires just as much imagery devoted to security, compliance, and legal frameworks as it does to actual learning, at what point does the massive administrative burden of protecting a student's data overshadow the fundamental mission of actually educating them?